What is up with the luteal phase and how do we work with it? How do we support it? How do we thrive through it? We're going to go into all of it. We were taught how to not get pregnant, or we were taught how to hide our periods or suppress our symptoms, and that is not the same thing as honoring and flowing with our cycles and using them as a blueprint for our energy, for our creativity, for our rest, for our food. This is really the single most misunderstood phase of our menstrual cycle. The invitation to slow down and be with yourself and go inward and reflect just generally on your life, but especially on what is no longer working for me. Where is my discernment coming out and being really honest? Hey, mama. Welcome back to the Thrive Mama podcast. I'm Martina, certified nutrition consultant and holistic health coach, and a mama of two, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm here to help busy moms unlock their energy, balance their hormones, and break out of burnout using nutrition as a foundation. We will dive into actionable strategies on nutrition, nervous system healing, and aligning with your cycles, all with a healthy dose of relatable motherhood thrown in, all designed to help you move past surviving to actually thrive in motherhood. Let's do this. I'm so glad to connect with you in this space. This episode's going to be really special and really juicy. And this is a topic that I go off on when it comes up in casual conversation with people, acquaintances, family, doesn't matter. When it comes up, I get heated real quick. And it's an important one, and it's one I get a lot of questions about. So we are exploring today the luteal phase, the premenstrual phase. What is up with the luteal phase and how do we work with it? How do we support it? How do we thrive through it? We're going to go into all of it. And as I'm recording this podcast, my doors and windows are wide open. So I'm sorry if there's background birds, but it is just too beautiful not to be in the fresh air. If I could be recording outside, honestly, I probably would be. I was actually just thinking today about how much easier parenting is when the weather is good. Do you know what I mean? How much more joyful and easy and flowy and low maintenance, it's never low maintenance, but lower maintenance parenting is when we have access to the outside in an easier way, right? In our family, we really do try to get outside no matter what the weather is, even in the winter. We're trying to go on walks, we're trying to play on the playgrounds where we can. It's just so much harder. It's more work, it's more convincing, it's more like you need more momentum and motivation. But man, when the weather's nice, it's so easy to just open up the doors and let the kids run out, and they want to be out there and we want to be out there, and it requires so much less of us, and everybody's happier and healthier. And I just freaking love spring. So this is your reminder, if you have not been taking advantage of the weather, to get outside with your kids and really soak up the parental support that is nature, that is good weather, that is sunshine, because man, does it help everything. And before we get too deep into the luteal phase, I want to share with you a quick announcement about an upcoming workshop that, if you like this episode, I think you're really going to want to be at. I am hosting a live workshop called the Cycle Keepers Workshop on Sunday, May 25th. This is a menstrual cycle deep dive for energy, for intuition and connecting with your body, and for nourishment, deep nourishment of each phase. And my goal in this workshop is really to help you unlock the lost wisdom, the lost roadmap, the lost rhythm of your body that we as a society have gotten so disconnected from. And we use our cycles as a guide for all of that. And I just found over the years of working with folks and through my own health journey, we as women are just so under empowered when it comes to our cycles. Most of us were taught just enough to get by. You know what I mean? We were taught how to not get pregnant, or we were taught how to hide our periods or suppress our symptoms. And that is not the same thing as honoring and flowing with our cycles and using them as a blueprint for our energy, for our creativity, for our rest, for our food. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much wisdom hiding in our cycles. It really can be the roadmap for how you live your life if we know how to support and honor and work with it. So that is my goal in this live workshop, is to really empower you with the deep understanding, the tools, the like period school that we all should have had and didn't, so that you can move forward in deeper alignment and deeper respect and deeper just like partnership with your body, instead of constantly trying to fight against your rhythm or like blame yourself when you feel like kind of off. Like, it's not a problem. It's just that we're in different phases and we're a different person and we need to honor that. So, I really want you there. This live workshop is going to be so, so potent. There is going to be a replay available if you can't come live, but if you can come live, there'll be some Q&A time. There'll be lots of beautiful interaction, and I would really love to connect with you in this space. So Sunday, May 25th, save the date. There'll be a link in the show notes, the description box below. So check out the link, grab your seat, because this is going to be a really special deep dive into your cycle and how to really work with and honor it in your life. And one of the reasons I feel so strongly about talking about the phases of the cycle, and we're diving into the luteal phase today, is that this actually is like a secret weapon against burnout. Because what happens when we're not in alignment with our cycles is we are using our energy in a way that's not actually connected to what's going on in the body, which means we're over pushing when we need to be resting, or we're kind of blah when we need to be like connecting, right? Like, we're not actually in step with what our body's asking for. And we're using so much more energy than we need to get through the day. We end up in a burnout cycle because we're over pushing, we're never resting, we're never allowing for the phases to cycle through. And so often I'll use with my clients this metaphor of flying a kite, right? So if you want to fly a kite, you could just go outside every single day, no matter what the weather is, hold your kite up and try for hours to get that dang kite in the air. No matter what the wind is doing, you decided today's the day you're going to fly your kite, so you're going to do it. And you're going to do that every single day. Because if you did it last Tuesday, you should be able to do it this Tuesday too, right? If there is no wind, if the weather conditions are not right, if it's raining, if it's still, right, you are not going to get very far. And you're going to expend a ton of energy trying, and you're not going to produce the effect, the outcome that you actually are trying to produce. Now, on the other hand, if you hold the intention that you want to fly a kite and you watch for a weather day that is aligned to that goal, when you go out to fly your kite on a sunny, windy day, you have to expend so much less energy to get your kite in the air. You get the outcome, but with so much less energy. And the days where it's raining or still and there's no wind, you're conserving energy so that when it is windy, you can go out and fly your kite. Okay. So the weather is like your hormones, it's like your cycle, it's your body. And flying the kite is what we're trying to do every day. If we're just trying to copy paste the same task, no matter the weather conditions in our body, we are expending so much more energy than we need to. We are leaking energy all over the place. We are ending up in a deficit, in a burnout state, because we're not honoring what's real in the body. So that's what Cycle Keepers is really going to get into for every single phase. What are the weather conditions in your body? What food does that phase need? What are aligned activities that you can do in your day or not do in your day that's going to really honor that weather system that's moving through, right? And just like the weather, our internal rhythm is constantly evolving. It's changing. We're not the same every single day. So when we hold this bigger vision of our entire cycle, it's incredibly powerful for burnout prevention. But today we're not going to talk about the entire cycle. We are going to get into that in Cycle Keepers. So I really want you to have all the pieces of the puzzle. So make sure you come and hang out on Sunday the 25th. But today I just want to explore with you the luteal phase. And this is really the single most misunderstood phase of our menstrual cycle. This is the premenstrual phase. So this is the phase after ovulation, but before we start bleeding. For most people, it's around like 12 to 15 days long is an average luteal phase. So it's also quite long. It's the longest phase of our cycle. For most of us, it's about half of our cycle is taken up by this one phase, the luteal phase. And if you think about how you feel premenstrual, or if you think about how society views premenstrual, PMS times, you can see how there is a collective stigma around this phase. For many people, it's hard, it's painful, it's uncomfortable. I'm quote unquote hormonal. I'm PMSing. I don't feel like myself. I'm grumpy. Like, how many reels have we all seen of like the boyfriend making jokes about how she's like a feral tiger in the luteal phase, but then come ovulation, she's like a sweet little kitten, right? And this is meant for many of these situations, these comments, these jokes, these stigmas are really wearing down our own connection to this medicine because every phase of the cycle holds medicine. There's no bad phase. There's really not. There's just alignment and misalignment. That's all there is. And so we have to be really intentional with the luteal phase to ask, what is the medicine? How can we live in alignment with it so it's not these like miserable 2 weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks every month? It's actually still a time of flow and connection. It just looks and feels different because our bodies are different. So I think to understand the medicine of the luteal phase, we do have to just understand the really broad view of the cycle at large. So I'm not going to go into all the different phases. We will definitely do that in Cycle Keepers. But it's just good to know because we're going to talk about some hormones today. I'm going to talk about progesterone in particular. So I think it's good to know that the first half of your cycle, from the time you like stop bleeding through when you ovulate, that part of your cycle is really run by the hormone estrogen. And estrogen is this beautiful, like feminine, empowered, sexy, fun kind of energy. I call it the Beyonce hormone. Estrogen is the Beyonce hormone. So big Beyonce energy happening with estrogen, okay? That is the main queen of the first half of your cycle. The second half of your cycle, which is the one we're talking about today, our luteal phase, is run by progesterone. And progesterone is a really different energy. Progesterone is like the chill hormone. Progesterone is like the yin, like if you think of yin and yang, yang is the like outward, creative, expressive. Yin is the inward, the rest, the pause. And progesterone is the yin hormone. It just is. So we have less outward energy to use, and we have more restoration and reflection happening with the hormone progesterone, which is the main queen bee of the luteal phase. It's really run by progesterone. And I think it's really interesting to just reflect on why this phase has such a terrible stigma for so many of us. I think there's two main threads. One is that because of really common diet and lifestyle challenges in our society, it's very, very common to have imbalances in our progesterone, which means in the luteal phase, we really feel it. We feel worse than we really need to feel because of the way most of us live our lives, because our progesterone's out of balance. So that's one really real thread. But the other thread is if you look at what our modern society actually values in women, what are the qualities that we really celebrate in women at large? It is being giving and soft and feminine, sexy, connective, creative, productive, right? These are all qualities that society values. They're all beautiful qualities, and they're all really strengths of estrogen, of the first half of our cycle. Some qualities that progesterone brings up in us is an ability to be reflective, to be discerning, to be super honest, truth telling. We stop performing and we start really feeling into our own truth. These are all very beautiful qualities to have, to be discerning and honest and direct. And are those qualities that society celebrates in women? Typically, no. So it makes a lot of sense that the luteal phase has such a bad rep out there and that we as women don't know how to honor and work with it in a constructive way because it really threatens a lot of gender role systems out there in the world and asks women to step into their power in a different way that can be uncomfortable for people around them if we have not embraced all faces of feminine energy. And I think to really understand how all of this weaves together, it's really important to know what's happening in the body. So, as progesterone rises, it is thickening the lining of your uterus. And it's doing that on purpose because you just ovulated. So, on the off chance that there's some spermies in there and the egg is fertilizing, we want the uterine lining thick and strong to hold the egg so that you can begin a pregnancy. Okay, that's the body's goal. The luteal phase is all about preparing and protecting a pregnancy. And it does not matter if you're trying to get pregnant, if you're never going to be pregnant. What matters is how your body was designed to function. Your fertility is about so much more than just making babies. Your fertility is your life force, it is the way your hormones were designed to flow. And so, right now, your fertility is preparing for a potential pregnancy. And whether or not we're getting pregnant, we still want the body to do that because it's supporting hormonal harmony and it's supporting overall thriving and energy in the body. Okay. So we want to protect that ability, even if we're not trying to grow a baby. So the lining is getting really thick, which is why sometimes in the luteal phase, you feel like some heaviness in your womb. It's because you literally have more tissue in your uterus as the lining gets thick. And progesterone is actually the pregnancy hormone. So when we were pregnant, our progesterone was very high for the entire pregnancy. It's how we maintain a pregnancy. And these couple of weeks after ovulation and before your period, your body doesn't know for sure if it's going to be pregnant or not. So it's laying the groundwork, it is preparing. And this is the most vulnerable time for a pregnancy, right? So your body is trying to protect this super vulnerable time in the womb. So before we ovulated, our body was really pulling us out into the world so we could connect, we could find a potential mate to make a baby with. We could be out in our energy and our Beyonce power. Okay, that's the first part. We're looking to find a mate. In this phase, we, in theory, have already found that mate. We're not needing to seek out and connect anymore. We're not needing to have all of the sexy feminine drive that we had before. Now we are in protection. So I want you to think about that for a moment. What would it feel like if the luteal phase, the premenstrual phase, wasn't a problem? It was just protecting you. We have no space. We have no space for being around people or situations that feel unsafe for our body or our nervous system in this phase. We have no buffer for any of that. The things that threaten us in any way are going to feel really heightened because our body is in protection mode. So the next time your PMS really kicks up or you start to feel a little bit irrational or way off in the luteal phase, I want you to come back to this question. What would it feel like if this was protecting me? What is it protecting me from? What's it protecting me from? Because there's probably something there. There probably is. I think it's also interesting to note that your metabolism increases by like 10% or even up to 15% for some people during this phase. So we need more calories to prepare for this potential pregnancy and all the uterine lining, like we're building this lining, we're thickening the blood. So we need more actual calories during this phase. So if you have ever felt super hungry before your period or like the week leading up to your period, you're just like snacking nonstop or you're craving a lot of carbs and sugar, it's because your metabolism is working faster. You need more food. You need more food. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not a willpower issue. You're not just emotionally eating. You need more fuel. Like you literally need more food because your metabolism is moving faster. Now, as I said, each phase really has its own medicine. And the medicine of the energy around this phase is that it does call us to pause and be with ourselves in a really beautiful way. And this is something that a lot of us don't make enough space for in our day to day lives. We are nurturing, we're caretaking, we're serving, we're leading. But how often are we still with ourselves? How often do we prioritize going inside and checking in and processing and reflecting? It's not most of our default priorities because society has really emphasized the strengths of the first half of our cycle and not so much the second half. And we have a lot of conditioning around being still and being in reflection. And for some of our nervous systems, it feels very uncomfortable to like sit with our feelings, to allow ourselves to feel our feelings. It can feel very uncomfortable and sometimes even unsafe for the body if we don't have support around how to do that. But that's one thing that the luteal phase is really asking us to do is to pause and reflect and go inward. So in a practical sense, we want to be around people less in the luteal phase, which again isn't a problem. Especially if the people in your life know that this is part of your programming, that this is part of your body's wisdom. It's not a problem that your partner is annoying you so much because you haven't had a minute to yourself all day. It doesn't mean you don't love your partner. It means you're in your luteal phase, you need alone time, and you haven't honored that. So now the people around you are really triggering that out in you. Not a problem. Not a problem. It's actually a strength to have this time where we want to prioritize being alone more, going inward. We also are more kind of raw and real and sensitive during this phase. And this is when I see a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm just PMSing or I'm just hormonal. And the word just in there is really important because it is dismissive to the feelings that you're feeling. We tend to, when we get to this point, I was just talking to my friend recently who we were talking about some cycle things, and she was saying, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense because every single time I know I'm about to start my period when I want a divorce. Like when I cannot stand my husband, that's when I know my period is coming. And I was laughing at this because how true is it? But also, how dismissive of this are we when we just blame it on our hormones as though that makes it not true? And I'm not saying this friend needs to get a divorce at all, but I'm saying what comes up for you in your luteal phase is truth. There is truth there. It might feel exaggerated. It might feel like it's coming out in an irrational way, but there is truth there. The luteal phase takes away all of the buffers, all of the sort of like performative, like positivity. It takes it all out and it leaves us with what is truly aligned and what is not working. And so, whatever it is that's triggering or activating or coming up for you in the luteal phase, I want you to start a practice of journaling about it every single cycle. What is bothering me? What is tearing me down? What is really irritating me? What's bringing up anger or frustration in these couple of weeks before my cycle? Because whatever it is, you'll probably see patterns month after month. It's similar things. And those are things in your life that need to be adjusted. For this friend, it's not that she needs a new partner, it's that there are dynamics in her partnership that actually aren't working. And for most of her cycle, she can kind of like make excuses for it. She can focus on what is working. She can stay really positive and connected. And like, yeah, it's just kind of how it is. It's fine. And then we can sort of like be in that. It's not denial, but it's focusing on the bright side and not addressing the truth underneath it that something's not working. And then as we come into the luteal phase, we can't pretend anymore. And that truth deserves to be reflected on, even if the way it's coming out feels a little bit exaggerated or a little bit irrational. So, really view everything that is activating you as potential truth messages. What is no longer aligned for me? What am I ready to let go of? What dynamic needs to change? What is draining my energy? Because whatever it is, it's going to come up in a big way in the luteal phase, and that is beautiful medicine. It's not a problem. It's incredible medicine. Clarity is a gift. We can't change what we're not aware of, right? And the luteal phase brings so much clarity. It's so beautiful. We can be so discerning about this is for me, this is not for me anymore. I'm not going to do it like that anymore. I'm not going to do it in that way. Like we're done with this pattern, whatever it is for you. We can be so discerning and so honest, and that is a gift. That is a gift. So if you find yourself feeling like the directness and the truth telling is coming out in a way that's harming your relationships during your luteal phase, like if you tend to be in bickering patterns or you just like can't stand people, it's because there are dynamics in those relationships or needs that you have that are not being met that you can look at then throughout the rest of your cycle when you have more capacity to problem solve and be collaborative and like be a team and work through it. But if we just call it PMS and dismiss it as hormonal, the same cycle is going to repeat every single month until we address it, until we really take a hard look at it. So, that to me is a huge piece of this medicine. The invitation to slow down and be with yourself and go inward and reflect just generally on your life, but especially on what is no longer working for me. Where is my discernment coming out and being really honest? It's really important to pay attention to right now in the luteal phase. And before I keep going, I will say, because I don't think I said this super clearly at the beginning, the luteal phase I mentioned is the time after you ovulate and before your next period. So if you track your cycle, what we're talking about here are days like 17-ish through day about 28, 29, whenever you start bleeding. Okay, so about day 16 or 17 through the day you start bleeding, which for most of us is around 28 days. So for those like 11, 12, 13-ish days, those are the days that we're talking about here in the luteal phase. And you'll find as you move into it, the first week or so of your luteal phase, like this is sort of a gradual shift for a lot of us. So the week right before your cycle, you will probably feel this medicine more strongly than the first few days of your luteal phase. We're gradually moving out of ovulation and into the luteal phase. We're going to talk in the Cycle Keepers workshop about the menstrual cycle's mirror of our seasons on Earth and how each phase of our cycle has a corresponding season where the energy is a really beautiful support and match for what's going on. And the luteal phase energy is autumn. It is the energy of fall. So if you think about what's going on in fall, we are transitioning. We are slowing down. The nights are getting longer. We are, like, if you look at nature, things are starting to retreat into hibernation. The leaves are releasing. We're letting go. We are releasing what no longer works. Autumn is a beautiful portal of shedding, of release. And that is what's happening in the luteal phase. We are shedding and releasing what is no longer aligned for us so we can move into our bleed time really clear and light and in alignment with ourselves rather than holding all this baggage and energy that's not actually ours to hold. And we're just like carrying it around cycle after cycle after cycle. We need to shed our leaves. We need to let them go. So, if that's the medicine of the luteal phase, I want to talk about how to work with that medicine. And I'm going to talk about it sort of like energetically and then also nutritionally, what foods our bodies need for progesterone production and uterine lining and all that beautiful stuff, and how we can energetically throughout our day honor that inward pull, that discernment, that honesty, the less buffers, that we have during the luteal phase. So the first thing that I would say is just normalize it. Just normalize it. If we go into every day expecting to be in this inner summer, where things are fiery and hot and energetic and confident, productive, we are going to feel frustrated and disconnected because that is not how we work. But if we normalize, oh, I am in inner fall right now, it becomes less of a problem to solve. There's no longer this like, oh, what's wrong with me? This time last week, I was so positive and I was so committed to my goals and I was like such an amazing patient mom. And now I'm like, none of that. Like, what is wrong with me that I can't stay consistent? Like, we make it mean something. And the first invitation I have for you is just to normalize it. It's not a problem. You're not a problem. You're not broken. Okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Your inner autumn is supposed to feel different. And side note on that, inner autumn luteal phase is the phase that I find it most difficult to parent through. So, if that helps to contextualize anything for you, the week or two before my cycle, really like the last week when the luteal energy is really loud, I'm pulled so inward. I am feeling so protective of my energy, and my kids are still really small. Okay. They're 2 and 5. So there is a lot of external energy flow happening every moment that I'm around them. And in the luteal phase, it's really, really hard. Our like nurturing, loving patience, our little like soft, beautiful mother energy from the first half of our phase isn't here. In the luteal phase, we are like a fierce warrior mama, which is also beautiful, but less patient, less understanding, and needs a lot more physical and energetic space. So, if that helps you feel normal, just know the luteal phase can be really challenging to parent through. So that's number one. Normalize it. Don't expect yourself to be exactly the same as you were last week. Don't expect yourself to be in inner summer every single day. It's not going to happen, and you're just going to feel frustrated, and you're going to be out there trying to fly your kite in a thunderstorm, and it's just going to deplete you and drain you. It's not going to work. Number two is I really think that there's a strategy here around just lightening your load in the luteal phase. So I have an entire workshop actually pre-recorded that you can check out that talks you through how I plan each month to align with my cycle, how I literally look at my calendar and my obligations and I move things around wherever I can to align with which phase of my cycle I'm on. Because in the luteal phase, if you have scheduled like a play date with the neighbor and a full family trip to the zoo, and we're also gonna like go on a date night, and then I have 3 work projects happening, and then my partner's out of town, so I'm solo parenting, and then I'm giving this big presentation. Like, you know what I mean? If you're scheduling all these really external high energy things, it's gonna feel terrible. You're gonna feel so burned out because you're pushing your kite and the internal weather system isn't aligned with that. So, what I do in this menstrual mapping workshop, I walk you through my exact step by step process. I actually sit down at the beginning of my cycle and I look at my month and I look at my calendar and I align my phases with what's going on my days. And I look and see how can I move things around so that these external activities are front loaded in my first half of my cycle and I have way more space in the second half. In the luteal phase, you're going to want like a Saturday with nothing planned, you know? You're going to want like limited visibility at work where you're not like leading huge meetings or like giving big presentations if you can help it. You're going to want like after work nothing going on so that you can just take a bath and go to bed at 8:30. Okay? You're going to like want more space. And when we have more space, when we're not this is just such a funny pattern that happens. Our follicular self, our first half of our cycle, our Beyonce estrogen self, they love to plan fun things, and it's so nice of them. But they really screw over our luteal self because we're like, yeah, let's go get coffee. Yes, let's have brunch. Yes, I would love to go to that museum. Yes, 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 yes to everything. Because in the moment, we want that. It sounds great. And then a week or 2 weeks later, when we actually had the thing planned, we are now in our luteal phase and we're like, fuck, I don't want any of that. Like, I'm tired. I just wanna, like, be left alone in the woods, you know, or, like, whatever it is for you. Take a nap, take a bath, like, watch TV. Like, I just wanna, like, not be outwardly connected to people nonstop. And our Beyonce estrogen self is terrible at overcommitting our luteal self. So just something to watch for. Okay. And just something to keep an eye out for because that whole overcommitting cycle is like a whole thing. And my menstrual mapping workshop really outlines my strategy for making sure that doesn't happen as much as I can and planning. So my second strategy for you really is reduce obligations where you can. Open up your calendar, open up your schedule, limit the energy expenditure in big activities so you just have more space. Okay. If you're on day 9 of your cycle as you listen to this, you might be like, I don't want that. I don't want a whole Saturday with nothing planned. But I promise you, when you're on day 26, you are going to want that. You really are. So we're like not projecting how we feel today on our luteal self because things change quite a bit as our hormones shift. The next energetic tip I have for you is be really good about your boundaries. Really, you need sacred strong boundaries during the luteal phase. And I do mean practical boundaries around like what you're available for, what you will and will not do for people, what you want to be around or not be around, but also just like energetic leaks. You have less of an energy pool to pull from. You just do. And I find sometimes things like scrolling social media, for example, this is a big one for me in the luteal phase, my energy gets depleted so fast when I am scrolling social media. It is like constant, just like pulls of energy out of my body. And I just feel like blah at the end. I really do in my luteal phase. I know that I have less energy I'm working with. I am more sensitive. My buffers are not there. And I need to protect my energy. And social media is a constant wild card, right? You have no idea what's about to pop up. And so letting my energy be sucked out in that way is something that really doesn't serve me. In my luteal phase, I'm a lot stricter with myself around scrolling time. This might also be energetic boundaries around like certain types of conversations, talking to your partner and saying like, I know that we need to like get that vacation planned and get all the details figured out and like do, all the things. And right now I'm not in a place where I have the energy for that. Let's reconvene in a week. Like thinking about what are the tasks that you have space for and the tasks that you do not, and setting up really clear boundaries for yourself and for the people around you to honor that as much as possible. Now, interestingly, during this phase, because of our higher levels of progesterone and some of the hormonal shifts happening, we do tend to be really drawn to detail-oriented tasks and decluttering kind of tasks. So this is a really good time to sort of tie up loose ends. And ideally, this is happening in a way where you're kind of like alone in your bubble, just like getting stuff done. Like when we talk about the bleed in Cycle Keepers, we're going to go deep into the menstrual phase and the bleeding time. That is a phase where like many of us just actually don't want to work on much at all. But the luteal phase isn't necessarily like that. We do have lower energy, but most of us do feel productive in some way. We just don't want to do some big creative emotional task. We probably want to be left alone in our little bubble to just put our head down and like get through it. We're like balancing the budget for the month. We are like analyzing data, we're tying up loose ends, loose projects. For me, I have a stack of mail, like literally, this is how my brain works. I have a stack of mail that is like needs to be addressed, but isn't super urgent. And it sits on my desk and I add to it and add to it, add to it until in the luteal phase one day, I'm like, okay, let's get it done. Let's get it done. Let's like go through it, tie up the loose ends. It feels really good hormonally, feels good energetically. Same with like decluttering kind of projects. Okay. So like cleaning out the closet, organizing the garage. You probably don't want to do this as a big team effort, but you would love to have 2 hours alone with your podcast, just like getting it done. It probably would feel really good during this phase. So thinking about that too, of like, we're not just laying around in the bath, not doing anything for 10 straight days. And we are aligning our tasks with the kind of energy we have in this moment. We're not visioning, we're not dreaming up new things, we're not making huge creative plans. We're in sort of like detail tie up loose ends, declutter kind of moods. Organizing feels so good in the luteal phase. Okay. So channel that. Channel that. How beautiful that you have 10 whole days of your cycle where you're like programmed to clean and declutter and organize. Like amazing. And then on day, 13, when you guys planned that whole garage clean out, but now you're on day 13 and you're like, yeah, but I just want to like go pick strawberries at the farm and let's invite your parents and let's have a picnic and spend all day out at the strawberry farm, right? Like that's what we want to do on day 13. We don't want to clean out the garage, but give it a week or two and you actually will. So again, when are you trying to fly your kite? Okay, like plan it around the weather systems. It really does revolutionize how much effort it takes and how burned out you get by the end of it. And before we talk about food strategies, nutrition strategies, I think it would be really helpful to pause and zoom out into what it looks like when the luteal phase is imbalanced. Because I've talked a lot about like reclaiming the medicine, right? Like being sort of direct and honest isn't a problem. Let's reclaim that. Okay. Being discerning and seeing what's not in alignment, it's not a problem. Let's reclaim that. But if we have imbalances in the luteal phase, which happens for a couple of reasons, we may feel all of this medicine in an intense, unhelpful, like unsupportive kind of way. And those are times where we do want to support the body and the hormones however we can to come back into balance. Because while it's true that we are not the same person every day, we're not supposed to be the same person every day, we also shouldn't feel so intensely out of alignment in the luteal phase that we want to like burn it all down and fire everyone and like we can't have a conversation without it escalating. Like there is an imbalanced version of this that I do just want to talk about really briefly. So the main reason that this happens is if we don't have enough of the progesterone, that pregnancy hormone, that chill hormone. If we're low in progesterone, the luteal phase is really gonna feel it. We are not gonna like it one bit. We are gonna feel really anxious in the luteal phase. We're gonna have trouble sleeping. We're going to have really painful, like PMSy symptoms, heavy cramping, painful periods. Like spotting before you bleed. We'll probably have breakouts. We'll probably have huge mood swings. And this is also when we start seeing patterns of infertility in a lot of people. Progesterone is a really key piece of that. So, if we don't have enough progesterone, the lining of the uterus can't strengthen and it cannot hold the implanted egg. It can't hold the fertilized egg to grow a baby. So, the lining isn't thick enough and we have trouble conceiving and staying pregnant without enough progesterone. Now, there's two versions of this not enough progesterone thing. One is we just are deficient in progesterone, straight up. This happens in a few different ways, but a couple common ones I see is a history of taking hormonal birth control is a really, really big one. Even if you haven't taken it in years and years and years, even if you've had babies since then, history of hormonal birth control almost always is going to leave you progesterone deficient. Like almost always. I can't say 100% of the time, but like almost always. If I'm working with someone that used to take hormonal birth control, we almost always need to do some progesterone support. This was my story too. I took hormonal birth control for 6 years. And when I went off it, my entire system went haywire. And after a lot of work and devotion and support, I was able to get my cycles back and have 2 really healthy pregnancies and conceive naturally and all the things. And even now, post 2 babies, post 2 pregnancies, years and years of taking beautiful care of my body, my progesterone still needs constant support because of those 6 years spent on hormonal birth control. Okay. I can't just like take my hands off the wheel and let my progesterone go because it will go back down to where it was when it was being suppressed by hormonal birth control. So just something to know, right? Zero self judgment about that at all. There's zero. And we now get to be informed and empowered about what those choices mean for our body now and how we can support it. So just know you have a history of hormonal birth control and you have any of these things going on in the luteal phase that I mentioned, the spotting, the short periods, the light periods, the painful periods, the acne, the infertility, the mood swings, whatever, your progesterone needs some love. My love, it just does. Your progesterone needs some love. But the other version of luteal phase imbalance is when our progesterone's like okay, but our estrogen is too high. We call this the progesterone estrogen ratio. So this happens either because our estrogen's chill, but our progesterone's too low, which is what we just talked about, or our progesterone's cool, but our estrogens are way too high, which means the imbalance is still really prevalent. This is often when I see more of the heavy, painful periods versus if you just have low progesterone, you probably have more spotting, more short luteal phases, short cycles, short bleeds, things like that. But if you're having more of the heavy, painful periods or serious mood swing things, we need to look at your estrogens and progesterone kind of ratio there. I think it's incredibly helpful to have your hormones checked at least once a year, especially after you've had kids. This is really helpful information. And I also just want to note that many doctors that I personally have worked with, that my clients have worked with, just have not been trained on optimal female functioning. They just haven't been trained on optimal women's hormone levels. And so if you look at like the lab values on your lab report, maybe you got blood work done and they're like, yeah, everything looks good. How often do we hear this, right? It's fine. You're fine. It's normal. It's normal. And you're like, yeah, but I don't feel great. you know, Here's the thing. Average lab values on your lab report are based on the average ranges of sort of like the population at large. And I think we can all agree that we would rather not have the average health of the average American, right? Like we would rather be healthier than the average American. And these lab value ranges typically are very misleading and don't tell the whole story. So just as a note of empowerment to you don't have to just take your doctor's word for it if they say it looks fine. You can ask for a copy of your labs, do your own research, or work with a functional medicine doctor, work with a holistic practitioner, work with a nutritionist, work with somebody who can give you a perspective on your lab values that might be more from an optimal perspective instead of average. Okay, so just a little nudge to get your hormones checked, really get a look at what's going on in your body, especially post kids, and get them interpreted and get support from people who are really devoted to this sort of holistic support of the body and have dedicated their careers to learning about what is optimal and what is not. Okay, so after all of that, you want to talk about some food? Should we finally get to some nutrition after all of that? Listen, cycles are so powerful, and nutrition matters in a super big way. And obviously, is like the foundation of my work. But as you just heard, there's a lot of energetic things happening that if we don't understand, just getting like a eat these seeds list is gonna really leave us without the tools that we need to really thrive in our cycle. Okay. We need the whole picture. We need the energy weather report. And then we can look at the food and how it supports the energy report. Okay. That's kind of the goal. So I'm going to list off some nutrition perspectives for the luteal phase and just know we go even deeper into all of this. And we do this for every single phase in the Cycle Keepers workshop. So if this has felt helpful or enlightening to you, or if you're left after this episode with like, okay, I want like more. How about more of that? I need to like know more. Or like how does this look month after month in a full cycle flow? Come to Cycle Keepers. It's going to be such a beautiful deep dive into all of this medicine. So, number one, your metabolism is running higher. Remember, in the luteal phase, you're preparing for that potential pregnancy. So you do need more food. Honor your hunger cues. Eat more food. But here's the trick. Here's the tricksy part. Your blood sugar is more sensitive in the luteal phase. Okay, you are more insulin resistant in the luteal phase. So this is tricky. You need more food, but your body is processing carbohydrates less efficiently. Okay, the same carbohydrate food is having more of an impact than it would at a different time of your cycle. So The way we honor our hunger cues without getting in these spirals of sugar and carb cravings that's so common in the luteal phase is by really boosting protein and fiber and boosting complex carbs. So I would love for like 100% of your carbohydrates in this phase to be fruits, vegetables, or legumes, period. If you can make 100% of your carbs in the luteal phase be fruits, vegetables, or legumes, which means we're not doing a ton of bread, we're not doing a ton of pasta, we're not doing sugar. I'm not saying these foods are bad, and I'm not saying you can't eat them, but I'm saying nutritionally in your body, you are going to feel best if your carb sources in the luteal phase are fruits, vegetables, legumes, and we're pausing on some of these other grains and simple, starchy, carby kind of foods. Your body can tolerate those a lot better at different phases of your cycle. So we're not in some kind of like restrictive flow here. We are just honoring foods at different times the way that our body can actually metabolize them. So, some examples of these complex carbs that would be really beautiful things like sweet potatoes would be great. Oats, root vegetables like carrots and parsnips and beets. Those are all so good. Quinoa is amazing because of the protein, the complex carbs, and the B vitamins. We need all of those in high amounts in the luteal phase. Lentils, also so beautiful. And lentils also have a lot of magnesium, which we're about to talk about next, but really supportive, especially if you have PMSy, painful period, crampy kind of symptoms. Magnesium is your bestie. So lentils is going to be great. So just to recap, more food, but less simple carbs. Focus on protein, lots of protein, fiber, and complex carbs. So things like sweet potato, quinoa, lentils, root vegetables would all be really beautiful. Now, magnesium that I mentioned. Magnesium is a super, super nutrient for the luteal phase. And you can find magnesium in a lot of different foods, but it is depleted by stress cycles very quickly, which means that many of us are deficient in magnesium and we need more anyway. And then you also need more in your luteal phase. So some foods that you can really boost. Dark chocolate actually is beautiful. So if you do find yourself craving chocolate before or around your period, that is deep body wisdom right there. It really is. The issue is we're not going to go to like the Twix bar, no judgment, but like not going to be as supportive for your body. We are going to go for the like dark, like 80% dark chocolate bar instead, because that will satisfy the magnesium craving. It will get us beautiful antioxidants and support hormones, progesterone, and PMS type symptoms. So dark chocolate is like medicine in the luteal phase and in the menstrual phase. Other magnesium foods you could look at, things like avocados, pumpkin seeds, leafy greens. Leafy greens are amazing. So spinach, kale, bok choy would all be fabulous for the luteal phase. So we have our complex carbs. We have our magnesium foods, and you can go back and listen to this episode, take down some notes, or you can come to Cycle Keepers, and I'm actually going to give you a couple handouts that have like maps of your whole phase and food lists for every phase. So it'll all be super, super clear for you in the workshop. But for this podcast, feel free to like jot down some notes as you're listening, because I know we're going through this list of foods pretty fast. And then the last nutrition thing that I want to share with you is your system is so much more sensitive right now, which means things like caffeine and alcohol that you sometimes can tolerate a little bit better, you really cannot tolerate in the luteal phase in the same way. You're going to feel the impacts a lot more, and it's really impacting your liver. And your liver's already working real hard in the luteal phase. It's detoxing so many high hormones. So, giving yourself more of an energetic buffer from stimulants and depressants, from caffeine and alcohol, and giving your liver some space to detox the estrogens out so that your progesterone and estrogen ratio we talked about can all be beautiful and balanced. Okay. So, again, we're not saying these foods are bad. We're not saying you can never have them. But if you're looking for optimal balance, sugar, simple carbs, caffeine, and alcohol are all going to be tolerated better in the first part of your cycle. The luteal phase, we just are more sensitive. We just have less of a buffer to work with, and we need to really protect our energy reserves as much as we can. In the Cycle Keepers workshop, we're also going to dive deep into herbs. Okay. So we're not going to go into that in this episode today, but herbs are an amazing support for your menstrual cycle and are a tool that I typically have people cycle through each phase. So each phase, they're focusing on different herbs from teas, from tinctures. Really amazing way to support the hormones and support our energy strengths, our energy medicine for each of the phases. So if you want to dive into the herbs, definitely check out the Cycle Keepers workshop. But whether or not you come join us on Sunday the 25th, I know that this deep dive into the luteal phase just had to be like out in the world because, as you can tell, I feel really strongly about the luteal phase. And I am the one who, when people make jokes about it, or when someone shares that they're PMSing, or when we blame something on PMSing, whatever, when it comes up, I tend to go off on I don't know how long we've been talking, 45-minute rant on the strengths and the stigmas and the medicine of the luteal phase. Because, man, is she powerful? She's powerful. You are powerful. And your body is so much wiser than we have been taught to believe. And this cycle work is really about coming back home to our body's wisdom and honoring our feminine flow. One of the strengths of being a feminine being, having a womb, identifying with feminine energy, is having these different phases that we get to embody throughout the cycle. Men's bodies do not work like this. Men's bodies work on a 24-hour hormonal cycle, not a 28-day one. So they tend to actually show up in much the same way every single day. And when we expect that of ourselves, we end up in overdraft. We end up depleted, pulling from our energy bank in a way that we don't actually have, and missing opportunities to tap into strengths at different phases in a way that feels effortless and aligned and exciting and flowy, and really relieves a lot of pressure and a lot of burnout from our bodies and from our lives. And I just want that for all of you, for all of us. We just want to live in a world where cycle wisdom is the default and where everything is set up to honor it. And it starts with you and it starts with us. So I can't wait to see you at the Cycle Keepers workshop on Sunday, the 25th. If you're not able to make it live, there will be a replay. This workshop is $33 and it will be sold later, likely at a higher price. So if you know you want access to this workshop, I would highly recommend you sign up for this first round, even if you can't come live, so you can get the replay for $33 instead of waiting 6 months and then buying it at full price later. So get in for this first round. Get in on Sunday, the 25th. Come live if you can. It's going to be so magical and so fun for us to be in circle together and really explore all of this amazing wisdom. It is life-changing, and I want it for you. So make sure you share this episode with someone, because I know there is someone in your life who needs this medicine. If you have a mama friend, if you have a sister, if you have a mom who is still menstruating, send it their way. We all need access to this medicine. And make sure you are subscribed to the show. Push the like button, do the rating thing. Really helps new podcasts get out into the world. And we are about to celebrate our 6-month anniversary on this podcast, which is so fun. So I would love to continue welcoming folks into the Thrive Mama family. And that can be done best through you sharing what you find valuable with the people in your life. It means so much to stay subscribed and do the ratings and do the sharing and all the things. So I would really love to hear what resonated for you from this episode. If you would like to comment on this episode below or shoot me a DM over on Instagram, I can talk about the luteal phase all day, and I would love to hear any shifts or insights or reflections that you have from this conversation. So until we meet again, take beautiful care of yourself.